Staples Business Advantage, practical advice and ideas to help your organization. Welcome to this episode of the BIZCHAT podcast. I'm Karen Pluthrow. How is the education sector integrating STEAM or STEM in their curriculum, and what trends are we seeing, and how are students and teachers engaging in this real-world learning experience? With us in this podcast is Catherine McClenaghan, a teacher with the Toronto District School Board who uses STEAM in her classroom to foster engaging learning techniques. We also have Martha Jez, CEO of Fair Chance Learning, who is extremely passionate about knowledge mobilization and supporting educators to help them provide every student with a fair chance to reach their potential. And last but not least, we have Maggie Clark from Staples Business Advantage, whose expertise lies with building out the category within this vertical, who is also a STEAM trainer for her sellers and customers. So what is the difference between STEAM and STEM, and why do you think it's important for children in the classroom?
So I can jump in on that one. From our organization, I think with respect to STEAM, what's beautiful about it is we don't just have our science, technology, engineering, and math, but we bring in the arts and the creativity that we really want our students to be embracing and discovering. When you infuse art into this conversation, that's where students do start thinking creatively in science, in technology, engineering, and math. And it's a more inclusive approach.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. As a teacher, I think that what I love about STEAM and using STEAM in the classroom is that the students get a chance to collaborate and participate in really important conversations that can progress their learning, and they have the opportunity to learn from each other. They also get the chance to develop their critical thinking skills. Mm-hmm. So if they're working together on a project, maybe one person has the idea, another person sees, okay, it could be better by doing this. Let's talk about why. Whereas that's not the kind of learning experience you get from the typical pencil and paper type of learning. So STEAM allows them to really engage and collaborate and become more innovative and creative in the technical processes.
And Maggie, what are you seeing with educators in this space? What are you seeing out there with STEAM and STEM?
So it's really a mixed bag when I'm out in the classrooms, just depending on the school and how the schools have adapted to the new pedagogies, and also the comfortability that teachers have or educators have with it. You know, you have some younger teachers that embrace it right from the very beginning, but then you also have, you know, veteran educators that are a little frightened by it and afraid to become a student in their classroom and have the students lead some of the discussions and conversations. But to one of the things that Catherine said about, you know, okay, how can we, you know, in the collaboration world, how can the educators turn those lessons back to the students into so that become project-based learnings? You know, I was at a conference last year, and there was a workshop by a teacher, and she said she no longer tells her students what to do, but she puts up on the whiteboard, how are we going to solve this problem? So it really is a change in the classroom.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. Now, Martha, for you, how does STEAM differ in the different grade levels between, you know, just junior school to post-secondary?
Yeah, we talk a lot about the competencies we want our students to be building over the course of their K-12 experience, right? And so when we look at what's available, we have these awesome robots that our educators can bring into the classroom, have the students building, but we think about how we can scaffold the skills so the educator feels comfortable and the students can see a pathway for their learning. And so it's the concepts are being built upon throughout their grade levels. We know that physical computing devices is really important when we think of bringing coding into the classroom and computational thinking. And we also know that the importance of unplugged activities as well. So unplugged is a nice way to get even our kinders into thinking about technology and the technical skills that, you know, they may require, and also thinking in a manner like computational thinking. So I think that we look at classrooms and we say, okay, what is right for our students at the level that they're at, and what tools are out there? And there's so many wonderful tools that educators have access to. So it becomes a playground.
And that's a great segue to my next question because, I'm sure there's a lot of new innovations that are coming up and new technology that's coming into play. What are the trends that we're seeing in the education sector? I mean, I think this is relevant for all of you.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to take that?
Sure. So, what I'm seeing is a lot of the kits, like these ones we have here, where the students actually build the robot or the device or whatever it is, and then take it to that next level. So the product actually grows with the students. They can start at one level with, very basic coding skills like, Scratch Junior or something. But then by the time they make it up to their intermediate years or even secondary school, they're doing Python or Java coding. So I'm seeing a lot of the kits. I'm seeing a lot of virtual reality is really becoming big, in augmented reality. A lot of schools are adapting that technology and really opening up their classrooms to global classrooms where they're being able to communicate using, Google chat rooms with classes across the world.
It's amazing how things have changed since
Yes.
we were at school.
Yes.
Yeah, I think to extend on that as well in terms of the trends, the kits are really important, the global collaboration is really important, and the real world learning opportunities. And so the ability for our students, and the question, like you said, now it's the how do we solve this problem? We identify the problem, how can we solve that? The Sustainable Development Goals, there's an amazing movement of educators and students who say, you know what, we want to address these 17 goals. We want to provide our solutions. We want to solve for these. And that unlocks the creativity and collaboration and critical thinking in a beautiful way. I have a quick story of a maker challenge that we had run at a conference, and we had run it with a group of female students, because that's another important piece, is encouraging our young females to get involved in our STEM careers. And we did a challenge where they had to create something that would make a tool more accessible, and they took a keyboard, and then they had to campaign to the people in the audience to get their votes. And the teacher stood by. He was a facilitator, this was in York Region District School Board, and he came up after and he said, the one student that was the most vocal through this whole process was a student who was chose to be mute during the class. And so she found her voice through the technology.
Amazing.
Because of the purpose, which was incredible.
That's it.
Yeah, that's
Awesome.
amazing. Now, are we seeing any challenges in this industry with STEAM and STEM, Maggie?
Sure. I mean, especially in public education, right? It all comes, funding is a challenge for educators to get the product and get the training. So it's one thing for us to provide a product, or, the school district to provide a product, but making the educators comfortable enough to integrate that into their curriculum, into their classrooms, is another portion of that, in my opinion. So that's a big challenge. And then I think, again, it really comes down to the comfortability of the educators and how welcome they are to relinquish that old school mentality where, the teacher stands in the front of the classroom and teaches or dictates. Now we're really seeing it change, where the teacher is now not sitting at the front of the class or standing at the front of the class. They're in the class with the students.
They're really engaging with those students. Do you see that in the classrooms?
Definitely. I think that more so the new style of teaching, and something that I found more beneficial to adopt, is that I'm just kind of there to guide their learning. I'm not there to pour the information into them. And I think that it just makes the learning experience so much more authentic, and it goes so much farther because they're the ones directing it. So if there's a student who's coming to school and they say, why are the streets all flooded? Okay, the snow's melted. What can we do with the groundwater? What can we build? What we can design to deal with this groundwater issue? Okay. Is there something that we can do with this groundwater to send it here, send it here? So then they're building, using STEAM or STEM, some kind of prevention device or anything along those lines. So the students are the ones who are coming up with the ideas. You just let them run with it and provide them with the tools to research, to build, to engineer whatever it is that they want. really. And during the process where they are coming up with the ideas, designing, whatever, it's not up to me to say, okay, why don't you do this instead? Why don't you put this here, put this here? It's up to me to be like, okay, why do you think this is going to work? Why do you think that putting this like this instead of like this is going to be beneficial? And then it's up to them to feed off those ideas and have that productive conversation with each other.
Mm-hmm. So they also work as a group as well as individually.
Oh, definitely. I think that collaboration is actually a huge part of STEAM and STEM, or it can be. And I think that is actually one of the most beneficial parts.
And introducing STEAM into the school system, how has it impacted you?
It's been pretty powerful. It's been a long time since I was a student, and it's been a long time since my children were students. So being able to get back into the class and see what's happening has been really great for me. But watching the kids light up when they see the product, when they see, what technology has today to offer in their classroom or their learning environments, right? It doesn't have to be just in the classroom. Just watching them light up and watching the creativity come out of them. It's almost like you're observing them in a playground where they really have free rein to do whatever they want, but it's now in a classroom or in a school building. So it's really powerful. One of my favorite stories was we did a STEAM night at a school in Kingston last year with one of our vendor partners, and we set up the gymnasium as a trade show type of thing. And so there was many vendors there, and we had our virtual reality, we had all of our robotic kits, and the students were able to come down through the gymnasium and see everything and play with everything and touch everything. And then they were whisked back to their classrooms and put on their buses and sent home for the day. And as we were packing up, a student came back and he said, I phoned my mom and I said I wasn't taking the bus because I wanted to stay here. So he stayed and he was playing, Microsoft was there, and they had Minecraft there. I was drawing a blank. They had so he was playing with Minecraft. He was just having a great old time. And then his teacher came up to us and said that when they had gone back to the classroom after their initial run through, he said to her that was the best day of his entire life.
Wow.
And it
amazing.
just, and it was in a depressed area of Kingston, so the socioeconomics wasn't great. So, in schools, this is where most of these kids are seeing these products or having access to these types of products.
It's amazing. The one thing that I think all of you are saying is about engagement in the classrooms. And what are you seeing, Martha, as it relates to engagement in the classrooms?
Oh, yeah. I think even based on Catherine's snippets of her classroom, the collaboration is there, the engagement is there. The work of the teacher is to uncover the curriculum connections based out of, the inquiry that the students are going on in the journey. But from an inclusive perspective as well, the students, who have aptitudes to understand the role of technology. And you brought up Minecraft as a perfect example, right? There's lots of projects in school districts across Canada where the teachers are saying that student voice piece, students are finding their voice through technology, expressing their ideas and thoughts in ways that they, don't have the ability to if they have nonverbal issues or just from a social side of things. So the engagement of the people we might not typically engage in the classroom now with the modern emerging technologies is certainly there. And teachers, whether they're veteran teachers or new teachers, they're interested as well. They see the role technology plays in our everyday life. And so that realization that I have a critical role to play in terms of a student identifying their digital self, their best digital self, and making sure that you have the opportunity to develop those skills and competencies in the learning environment that they're going to.
That's great. You being, Catherine, an educator, a teacher, what materials do you feel are important for STEAM?
With STEAM, I would say that I think a big misconception, we spoke to this earlier, is that you need robots and computers and laptops and all these things. And these things are great. And if you have access to them, definitely use them, because they're the things that students are going to need to know how to operate, especially moving forward. But if you're not quite there yet, then you can use anything. You could just use household recyclables to build models for cars. You can use Epsom salts and food coloring to make like growing crystals. You could make baking soda and vinegar paint and create different art pieces. And these are all STEM and STEAM activities. It doesn't necessarily have to be super high tech if you're not quite there yet. But if you have access to someone who has these materials or knows how to use them, definitely reach out, because the engagement level will go way up with all of your students. And it just makes it so much more accessible to students of all levels, definitely, because you have all those different components.
And what about, expanding your knowledge as a teacher? Do they teach this at Teachers College? Where do teachers get trained? I'm going to give that to both Maggie and Martha.
Oh, I'm the wrong one to answer that question. I would ask Catherine.
Okay, Catherine or Martha, where do you get trained?
Yeah, so faculties of education, definitely. We work with UBC, and they have something called computational participation. And so the idea is getting educators who are in the field the opportunity to understand how to bring in these concepts like computational thinking or computational participation. So being there as part of the journey. So I'm bringing my artistic perspective to this groundwater innovation project, right? So leveraging the talents and skills of the educators in a larger conversation around future skills, digital skills that we all need to understand and leverage, like I said before, in our lives. And then there's amazing community partners. You know, the federal government has invested through the CAN Code funding. And so community partners, not-for-profit organizations, they are out there working, running workshops and after-school experiences for both educators and students. So that's really helping us move the needle.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
And what about for you?
When I was in the Faculty of Education, I don't think STEAM was quite as popular as it is now, STEAM or STEM. So I didn't know anything about it until I actually got out into the workforce. And then I heard about it first from one of my colleagues. In terms of going further with it, there are professional development opportunities that teachers can go to. They do have to be sought out by the teacher themselves. But there is so much stuff online that you can find, and then other places that you can go to, which I'm learning now, to learn a little bit more about STEAM, get some resources and some more training.
And so in saying that, how do we encourage teachers to make sure that they are bringing this into the classrooms, are keeping up to the new innovations? How do we do that?
I think it has to come from the system. I think that the district superintendents and those who are informing the policy and the board goals needs to acknowledge the role that STEAM plays in the classroom as they're considering how they're modernizing their learning environments. And that work is being done. The conversation needs to happen, though. Catherine just talked about the power of a colleague introducing her. So professional learning networks are the best place to grow and support one another, and just having that welcoming conversation as well. Educators need to be supported here in Canada, our publicly funded education, and so having such wonderful opportunities offered is really important, and just, saying, hey, you're doing a great job, because Canada's awesome.
That's great. Do you find, though, it's one thing that the students are learning about it in the classrooms, but do you find that they take it home with them, that the parents are embracing STEAM and STEM?
I would say that once the assignment is done and they bring it home, then yes. But I personally, none of the parents that I've worked with, maybe even a few, have initiated it on their end. I guess just because of accessibility, I would say. There isn't a whole lot of knowledge about it in the community where I work, at least.
Okay.
I'm not sure if it's different in other communities.
So I know you had previously said that BC has really embraced bringing STEAM and STEM into the classrooms. How can we ensure, or maybe you can elaborate, how can Ontario per se really start to embrace this into their educational system?
So I do see great work happening in Ontario with the different districts realizing that professional learning is essential, having low-cost equipment and access. Access is huge. Partnerships is also critical, right? Reaching out and working with organizations like Microsoft or Staples to do these types of conference experiences at high schools and gymnasiums for students, the workplace as well, opening up real-life experiences. We run with Microsoft. We've had over 800 students in the last 2 years coming to Microsoft and through to understand what the future of work looks like, and that's critical for the students, but also for the educators, because they are open to the conversation and they want the tools. And again, the veteran teachers are saying, I know my curriculum. I know my classroom management. I know what my students need from a social emotional side of things. Give me more. And so they're ready for it as well. So
that's fantastic. Yeah. So Maggie, how has Staples Business Advantage been at the forefront in making sure that we're partnering with organizations to keep STEAM and STEM really current within the educational sector?
So I've worked with a lot of our vendors that are existing vendors, as well as seeking out new vendors that have great product or great insight into STEAM and STEM that we could adopt into our own work and how we can sell. I've also spent a lot of time going to different conferences, meeting subject matter experts within school districts. I've been able to make some great connections across the country and really learn and absorb as much as I can so that I can make sure that Staples is staying relevant, is bringing the right solutions forward for our customers so that we can be the leader in our space. I think we're unique in this space because our competitors don't have the breadth of solutions we have. So just having it as one more thing that our customers can buy from us is, I think, a unique situation for us.
That's great. And then my last question, I think, I myself have learned so much during this podcast, but what do you see the trends being, in the next 10 years or even 20 years as it relates to STEAM and STEM, both from an educator's perspective, and maybe Martha, you can answer that as well.
Sure. I think some of the trends that I've been noticing is immersive experiences. So you were talking about the realities, virtual reality, augmented and mixed reality, and just having our students understand that the potential for their education is at a point that is never been seen before. Their access to resources, their access to knowledge, their access to subject matter experts from around the globe. And so when they really understand that the power for that learning is in their hands and they have opportunities to build, they have opportunities to create and produce learning artifacts that can go out into their community and make a difference, that global citizenship, that local connection is so powerful. And I think we're going to see more of that in terms of students owning their learning and us focusing on lifelong learning with a positive relationship with technology and understanding the potential that they have.
Great. And Catherine, what about you?
Definitely. I think that my students particularly, they want to save the world. They want to create things that are going to make things better, not only in their community, but globally. I know that when they come back on Monday and they've seen a little bit of the news, they want to talk about what they saw. They want to talk about what happened. They want to talk about how they can make it better, but they want to create those things. They want to give the world things that we don't have. So I think that connection to themselves, to their community, and then around the world is really, really great. And it's something that STEAM is perfect for.
All right. Well, I wanted to take this opportunity to thank all of you for being here today. And I think, the premise behind this podcast was really to create some engagement, some education, and to create some information for the people within the sector. And thanks for a great afternoon.
Thanks, Karen.
Thanks, Karen.
Thank you.